Okay, I think since we're at just 45 minutes, we should just go ahead and get rolling. Thanks everybody for coming. We've got some cool stuff to show you today. And I also want to thank Gus for all the work that he's done in helping to develop this feature and to help figure out how we can make good prompts and make this uh, composable AI really into an incredibly useful tool for all of our folks. I'm going to start by going through some sort of background information, and then we're going to take a look at a number of the different AI actions that we've created so far and show you what they're good for. So let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get right to it. Okay. So let's talk about what we're doing today. I'm just going to mention Mediagraph Standard AI just so that you can understand which things are part of Composable and which things are part of the Standard AI package we've had for a long time. Talk about why we made it, what Composable AI is, and then I'm going to show you some of the things that we've wired up and show you how it can be useful. We'll talk a little bit about how it works. I don't think we're going to have time to do any roadmap discussion, and we'll talk about how to get started. So, Standard AI has been in Mediagraph for a long time. If you've got an essential AI, or if you have a plan with AI, you have all of these features: facial recognition, auto keywording, which just got upgraded to a much better version of the service, automatic alt text generation, video and audio transcriptions, optical character recognition, sensitive content warnings. All of these, with the exception of the little upgrade, are just as they have been in the past. And with the exception of facial recognition, you really don't have to do anything to enable these. Facial recognition, you do need to train usually one image per person in order to train Mediagraph to recognize somebody. We're going to be talking about something where you have the opportunity to do a lot of customization, but in the standard AI, you don't. And it remains exactly the same, free to anybody who's got it, or included in your package to anybody who's got it. Reasons why we put this together: we wanted the human to be in control of the AI, which is really important. And we can all see that AI is improving incredibly fast, faster than we could be rolling out products just for people's specific needs. And also that AI doesn't really understand anything. It appears to, but it doesn't really. I've written an article about this that I'll show you how to get to. And while it doesn't understand, it is really good at very specific tasks. So that's the approach we've taken, is how to make AI really good at the tasks we think you need. You need the choice of the foundation model, which I'm abbreviating as FM, and control of the prompt in order to make it do the things you want it to do. We'll want to be creating some structured data, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So that's what our objectives here. So Composable AI puts you in charge of the instructions. It allows you to create specific tasks that are serve the needs of your organization. You can have the product of the analysis go into a specific field. You can test and refine. This is a really big one, important one about the human in control. You control when to run the action. You may make an action that's only useful for a very small subset of your files. Make it as affordable as possible, and easily expandable and updatable. And so that was all part of our design objective, and we believe we've done a great job with that. Go to cost right at the beginning. Some of this is just like science fiction cost. If you use the Claude Haiku 3 service and you use it on images, it's about 30 cents for 1,000 images. And if you use it on text, it's about 4/10 of a cent per 1,000 images, which is really remarkable. And that goes all the way up to about 4/10 of a cent per image for either of the two Sonnet foundation models. Still quite affordable, under $4 for 1,000 files. So highly affordable for a worker who can do some really great annotations. If you want to know more about the theory behind all of this, I published an article with Damn News July 3rd. And so if you go to Damn News and scroll down, you'll see the article, and it gives you the background on what we're doing here. So the specific things it can do, specific analysis, and I'll show you what I mean by that, create some workflow helpers and help to build context. So let's jump right in and take a look at some of what can happen there. So start with something that's really easy to understand, and that is person count. And so I've created an action where I am instructing the AI agent to create a count of the number of people shown in the image. For sporting events, only count players and not spectators. And then I'm asking it to also write this to the keywords. So this is the prompt, and the service I'm using is Claude 3.7. And so let's see what it's done. So I'm going to go down to my custom metadata filters here, and I'm going to go find the one for person count. And we're going to have a filterable. So here it is, image person count. I've got a lot of these running right now because I'm testing a lot of stuff at the moment. But this has gone through and counted up the number of people it thinks it's finding in any particular image file. And I can click on that, and that's going to filter down to just those files. And I can review this and say, okay, I'm happy with that, and that this is, one person per picture. Now I may look at this one and say, well, actually, that's two people in that picture. And I can make corrections right here. So I can say, no, that actually is two people. And same for any of these different counts. I can look at it and decide whether I'm happy with it. I see this one has actually counted this little guy in the background, and he's obviously not the subject of the photo. So I can also change that value right in the asset detail view. And if I see it's set to 5, but really I want to think of this as a 4-person photo, so I can make that change. So this is part of human in control. You can review what has been made, and you can make corrections, which we think is really valuable. I'm going to show you how you make an AI action now. I'm going to go into Manage, and I'm going to go into the custom metadata field. We're reusing a lot of the elements that have already been in Mediagraph for a long time. And this is the AI action we're talking about, image person count. And when I open it up, this is what we see. So we've had this custom metadata field for a long time. The thing we just added is this enable AI part of it right here. And this is where you can choose which of the foundation models you're going to use. And, we will be adding to these as, as we come up with good, compelling reasons to use new ones. This is where you create your prompt. Currently, you can either be analyzing the asset data itself or extracted text. The text is really nice if you have PDFs or other scanned images with a lot of text, because it's a lot cheaper, as we saw, to analyze text. You can say what file types. You can say whether this data is also written to another field. And in this case, I'm writing it to keywords. And then if you want to set up a controlled values, which is what I've done here, These are the allowed values from 0 people up to over 200. So that you can make these, you can make as many as you want. It doesn't cost any more to make one of those. The only fees are in using it. So let's go look at another example, key colors. In this case, I've just gotten a screenshot here that this is, I did this one on Claude Haiku 3, so this is the least expensive service. And I just have a simple prompt, make a list of prominent colors in the image, comma separated, and it'll bring those in as keywords and allow the AI to create new values. And it's created a lot of values here, maybe too many. And let's go see what happens. If I click this to, I'm seeing all of the files in the account. This is going to show me any where I have key colors identified. And let's say I want to find anything that's got purple in it. And it's doing a pretty good job finding files that have some purple in there somewhere. This guy's shirt. And then I can also combine that and say, well, let's say purple. And let's say I also want ones with a splash of red in there somewhere. So I can look for both of those colors. So this is, this is a nice example. I do think this would be a useful one to maybe set up a smaller number of colors and just say these are the allowed values, like we did with person count, where you can say there's only a specific number of values. I want to show you how testing can work here. So in this case, I want to caption some files, but I want to test and see which prompt and foundation model is going to give me the best results. And I have screenshots here of the settings that I used in each of these. So I tried it with Claude Haiku 3, described the content in 2 to 4 sentences. Now, in this case, I asked for some other information. If foods are shown, name as many as you can with 80% confidence. That's you can add additional stuff, but when you add additional stuff, it gets a little bit less accurate. And then I tried it with a prompt that's very stripped down to describe the content. And I was using Claude Sonnet 4. Another one, describe what's shown with Sonnet 3.7. And then I ended up deciding that I liked to create a 2-sentence description for this image because it made it more compact. And then I also have the ability to add that to the IPTC description so that this can actually be embedded in the file on download. But one of the things that's nice is I can make a lightbox here. In this case, we've got 24 files, and I can test and see the results. So I ran it multiple times. So here's what the Haiku 3 produced. Here's what Sonnet 3.7 produced. And you can see that the one I ended up liking, this 2 sentences one, is a more concise description. And I think it's getting too wordy in these other ones. So I liked that. And that's the one I've settled on that I will be using across my my entire collection. And the nice thing is you can add as many files as you'd like to this and test them all and evaluate whether you're, which service you like best. So that's one of the keys, is your ability to make some tests. Now you can also get even more specific. In this case, for emotional analysis, this was a thing I ended up thinking is pretty useful. Describe the emotion in this photo in 1 sentence, followed by up to 6 comma-separated adjectives describing that emotion. And I'm using Claude Sonnet 3.7 for this. And so let's pick a file. My family with Ben Folds, we were all very joyful. This image radiates pure joy as a group stands together in a hallway, beaming with genuine happiness, joyful, radiant, exuberant, warm, affectionate, celebratory. That's a pretty good description of that. Or um, this image of my grandmother. And let's go find the emotional analysis. This vintage photograph captures a contemplative, enigmatic expression beneath a distinctive feathered hat, conveying a sense of pensive introspection, thoughtful, mysterious, composed, dignified, wistful, elegant, which I think is a pretty good description of this and would be, something that would be wonderful for it to, be found for those keywords, or this picture of the B-52s. This image captures a sense of artistic detachment and cool indifference against a dark background, aloof, stylized, distant, composed, deliberate, and enigmatic. That's the B-52s right there. So, I really like what that is able to do. And, if that is the kind of thing that's useful for you in your collection, wonderful thing to be able to do that for 4/10ths of an image, 4/10ths of a cent per image. Now, another thing that is an example of how the pace of AI capabilities keep getting better. We will do optical character recognition on all images that come in. So we will try and understand the text. The service that we're using for that Amazon recognition is not as good as the modern LLMs are because they understand language better. And so I, again, tried 3 different versions, and starting with the cheapest one, Haiku 3, extract all text from this document and return it with similar formatting to the original. Claude 4, now Claude Sonnet. Sonnet is a little more creative, therefore it doesn't necessarily listen to you like all creative entities. And I ended up having to change the prompt to say only return results about visible text. No, I am not interested in what you think about something else other than the visible text. And so that was Claude Sonnet 4, and then 3.7, which is the one I ended up liking, says extract all text. Do not describe non-text items in this image. So that ended up being a very nice instruction. And I like this so much better that I actually said, let's replace the OCR content that Mediagraph has been putting in there. And so anybody with this can upgrade their OCR from our older service to what Claude Sonnet 3.7 is capable of doing. And let's take a look at a few examples. So here's, illustrated and not organized book. And I can see that, it says sees NRBQ with the Milwaukeeans. So Claude Sonnet 3.7 understood this to be NRBQ with the Milwaukeeans. And, a late and dark a moment of epiphany at Jimmy's as I watched Caldwell Twist in two-step to NRBQ. So it did a nice job picking up this text, which was great. And then let's find one where this one, let's say. Okay, so this has a lot of spacing in here. And in the original OCR, this was all just kind of one big block of text. But because Claude, was able to see OMG up at the top, OMG exclamation point. It read that. It could see that Kay's Shrimp and Okra Gumbo was a title on its own line. Once I decided I really liked what they're doing, what Claude 3.7 is doing, Sonnet 3.7, I had it replace the OCR, and it keeps all the line breaks, which is really nice. Makes it much more readable. So these new services are, they're better with columned text as well, and and also much better with this scribbled on a paper plate, possibly under the influence of the eggnog that this is a recipe for, but it did an imperfect but very good job of reading the text in that image. So this is really nice because this becomes foundational for text for analysis of the text. And again, we're looking at 0.4 cents per image. Moving on to the next, again, once you've got OCR, one of the things you can do is translate. So you pick a language to go to. And so in this case, it's Croatian, and it translate to English. And I'm told that it did a very nice job, accurate job creating English translation. And so this is quite useful if you are in a multilingual environment, and you have printed pieces. I created an action, and I think I did this one with the inexpensive Claude Haiku 3, was to tell me the name of the language that this is in. And so I ran this analysis on a lot of files with text. And so this immediately tells me which ones I probably want to have translated. Really, really useful. Key concepts extraction. This was an interesting one. So now we're looking at the ability to build on the first level of extraction and to get more information. In this case, what I wanted it to do was identify the object, and then I wanted it to tell me traditional Croatian recipes that use this. So it's seeing that they're green split peas, and then it is giving me 5 different Croatian dishes that use green split peas as a primary ingredient. And I'm doing food with this, but you could do anything. And I also decided that I wanted it to make a caption for me, a description, and I wanted it to be both in Croatian and English. Super easy to do. And again, once you've done the OCR, these things come in at like 1/1000th of a cent or something like that to process the conceptual stuff. For people who have large collections of written material, here's a 40-page PDF, and I was able to run an extraction that created a synopsis, and then extracted keywords, which are that are synthesized and set of keywords that describe the content here, and same with key concepts and people. This is its own action here. Key people and concepts, and it does a really nice job of pulling that out. Now, of course, you could just search for these names, and if the name exists anywhere in the text, Mediagraph will already find it for you. But it's, I think, a lot better for it to be able to pull out important content and make that available to you. Here's another one with some extracted text, but also linked up to the taxonomy in Mediagraph. So I have a bunch of recipes from a family cookbook, and I said, create a list of ingredients that are listed in this recipe. Do not include amounts, just the name of the ingredients. And I'm using Haiku 3.5 on just the extracted text. So because the source data is extracted text, it's inexpensive. It can be run on images or documents. And then I wanted it to create a set of keywords from the extracted ingredients. And this is a partial list of those ingredients that it found when reading through all of these recipes. And so I have these 54 files. Now I'm going to go down and open my tag tree, and I'm going to be able to see where I was able to organize those. All of these tags came straight from the AI, and so it tagged the meats. And if I want to find, a recipe that has andouille sausage, I can click on that, and there it is. Um, and I can also see other ingredients that are listed from this recipe. I can see it also has chicken breasts and something inside oil and vinegar, or yeah, some kind of oil. Anyway, this is telling me lots of information about the ingredients. And again, this may be a thing that's useful to you, but maybe it's useful to you for 100 files or 500 files. You can make one of these actions really quickly, just to tune to the needs that I have for this specific set of files. That's the power here. Here's a document I've seen most of my life uh, in French, and really, it's hard to read this type to begin with. So I ran the OCR, and it did a nice job um, pulling the French language out, and then it translated it for me. And I found out that this document means something entirely different than what I thought it meant. So uh, uh, kind of a letdown, but so anyway, that's this is again chaining a couple of actions together to really help. And I'm gonna switch gears entirely here and talk and show this. I have my old scanned negatives of Carolina basketball from back in the day, 1,729 files. And one of the things I wanted to experiment with is, could it find good sports action and do some initial culling, so that if I'm going to sit down and work on these pictures, I can have some idea what the best pictures are. And I don't think I've done my screenshots on this, have I? No, I didn't. Okay. So I've run this 3 different times. Basketball action 1, basketball action 2, and then there's another one, basketball action 3. And I just had different ways of setting up the prompt. And originally I was saying, well, we'll rank them from 0 to 5. And so I thought these were good. I found that it wasn't there are too many distinctions here. And so like the 4s were actually better than the 5s for some reason, but it did a nice job finding good basketball action. And I was asking it to look on the basis of um, uh, acrobatic action. And so I tried it a couple of different ways, and I ended up liking it more with this. Let's go back to showing everything with this smaller number of options. So 4 was going to be the best with the most acrobatic uh, action, and I thought it did a really nice job with that. And I asked it to look for peak action and acrobatic body position or something like that. And I think it did a really nice job with triage. And if you had a really big collection of, hundreds of thousands of scans, then this would be quite useful. I'm going to show you one other thing, and then we'll get to any questions. If you have questions, put them in the comment area. And let's find Bob Donnan stuff. And go here. Sorry. Okay, so we're going to be looking at some better photography from my old mentor, Bob Donnan. And so show you the interaction between are some of our standard AI and the composable and how it can fill these gaps. So I've got pictures of uh, some of these wonderful pictures from Bob, and I used face tagging. Bob writes incredible captions, but he doesn't use keywords. So the images were not keyworded for the player name. And so I gave it one picture of RJ Davis and said, find me all the other pictures using facial recognition. And, as you can see, it's doing an amazing job of finding him in lots of different types of positions. Really, really useful. But it didn't find everything of him. And so what I've done is I created an action here, and I said that this is UNC players from the 23-24 season in white jerseys. The prompt is saying identify all University of North Carolina players which are wearing white jerseys with blue writing according to the number on the jerseys, and then some allowed values. And then I also had it write it to the keyword, so it's going to show up here. So if I click on RJ Davis here, I'm going to find every file that it thought it found a number 4 in. And it's going to find a bunch of the ones that are also found by his face. But then it's also going to find some others where his face is just not showing. And so what I can do at this point is let's first filter on RJ Davis here and show everything with, or did I do this backwards? Does not, no, I did that backwards, sorry. I'm going to filter on all of the files that have the RJ Davis number identified. And then I'm going to say, show me only the ones where his face, where he was, his face wasn't found. So that's this does not include tag. So what I'm seeing here right now is any file where his number was found, but his face was not found. And some of these are going to be not really relevant, and some of them will be wrong. So there's ones where he's not part of the action, or in this case where it has misread number 7 to be number 4. And this is where the human correctable part is really nice. So I'm going to make these a little bit larger and just go down and say, well, that's not relevant. That's not relevant. That's not relevant. That's not relevant. And I can see somewhere where it really is. And so what I can do with these where it is not relevant, I can select them, and I can, if I'm in tagging mode, I can remove that tag right here. And then when I refresh, I'm only going to get the ones that have been left behind, and where he really is making a play. And at this point, I can easily select all of these and add them to the RJ Davis tag by drag and drop. So this is an assistant for keywording that is something where you can have an actual person review the work, decide that you like it. You could adjust the prompt and maybe ask for a higher level of confidence, but I think it's really useful if you have very large collections. And the one other thing for me to just make sure we say at this point, before we get to questions, is that if you are interested in this, we're going to start adding this to people's, or enabling this in people's accounts July 21st. And if you are interested in this, please go to www.mediagraph.io/CAI for Composable AI and sign up. You can either sign up to be kept informed, or you can sign up because you actually want this enabled on your account. You do need to bring your own AWS account. That is the way that we are able to make this so incredibly affordable. And we are going to be putting up a forum area for questions and for people to share knowledge. And we expect that this will probably require a weekly Q&A Zoom call with people to answer questions and share information and discoveries that people have. Okay, that was a lot. Gus, do we have any questions there?
We have a couple questions. It looks like Randall asked about player number identification just a few seconds before you started to show that off, so that was good timing. A question from Steve-O about the best way to learn about the various models that are on offer and understand which is most effective. So I don't know whether you might want to show your caption testing again.
Yeah, Gus, do you want to talk a little bit about what your understanding is of what each of these models is good for? I mean, on one hand, it is definitely a test thing, and that's why we want to give it to you. But
we make it really easy to set up each one of these models in parallel and run all four on the same file and compare the results and see which one you like the best. You can give the same prompt to all four models and run a small set of 5 or 10 or 15 images and decide kind of how you want to move forward before you run it on a larger collection. And I think there's a common misconception that the newer or more advanced or more expensive models are going to be better suited to a given task. And that's not really the case. They're just sort of different. For simple things like identification of dominant color or kind of object identification and things like that, the simpler Claude Haiku model is oftentimes as good, if not better, than Sonnet, which was designed to do more complex kind of reasoning rather than just identification, and might be more likely to infer or make assumptions about what's in the image that may not always be accurate. So I think that different models are going to be better suited to different tasks, and it's really important to take a look at all four, and we make it really easy to switch between them or set up questions in sort of sequential order or in parallel. So
great.
Can I ask a follow-up question to that, Gus?
Yeah, go ahead.
So as the number of models grows, isn't it going to become less efficient to have to compare all of them? Isn't there some better means to understand which is going to be the best model to use, depending on what your situation is?
I mean, the landscape is constantly changing, and especially as new models are developed and released, and old ones may even, in some cases, be more expensive than the newer and better models that are released. I think as the list will get longer, but older solutions might drop off and keep it relatively static. And there's quite a lot of documentation out there from the model providers as well about kind of internal testing they've done and from third parties as well. So
yeah, another thing, Steve-O, is that we do expect the forum to be a great place for exchange. And one of the things on our roadmap is to be able to have somebody export all the settings such that it can be imported into another account. And but as people find something that works, we are really hoping that we're going to see exchange of information on the forum and say, oh yeah, I found this, Haiku 3 is great for this. And so we're hoping to see that. We're hoping to see that kind of exchange of information. Let's see what else. There was somebody asking about different AI vendors. Andreas, yeah. We are currently only hooking through Amazon Bedrock, which aggregates a whole bunch of different services together. And we are also looking at what would be involved to just go out directly to others, to Google or to the OpenAI ChatGPT. We don't know when that would come in. Part of it is going to depend upon what feedback we get from our clients and where they might say, "Hey, I was looking at OpenAI and I was looking at ChatGPT and it actually does this thing better than any of the options that we have in Bedrock." So we do expect this to be changing more than monthly. The new sources, we can now pull from this field or write to this other field. So yeah.
And there are quite a number of models that are already available simply through Bedrock, besides the Anthropic models that we're launching with. I think there are 12 or 15 different providers, each of which has multiple models. And it's really straightforward for us to add those as options if desired or necessary.
So Laura's asking about can we train it to recognize something else? So you can definitely test out just asking it, but you can also use an image as part of a prompt. And so yes, it definitely can do a good job with object identification and even very specific identification as well. And let's see, what else are we seeing here? Yeah, Autumn, I think you're right about asking about having something go across the entire database. I think the first thing to do is to see if it can recognize it without having to put a picture in. There is something that's slated for fairly near term, which is a thing that they call prompt caching, where if you're going to say, ask it about a photo, you can upload a photo, and instead of having to upload it for each action, each file, which would get expensive, you can upload it once and have it use the cached prompt to go across and look for similars. I would also say that Autumn's right that you almost certainly don't want to be looking across. If you're looking for the school's mascot or something, you don't want to look at every picture in the entire account, probably. So,
And
Michael asked
one more
about
question about the fees. Is that billed through AWS? So this isn't really, the charge isn't coming from Mediagraph. It would be a per use charge, and I've never used AWS, but I'm assuming it would just.
That's correct. And so, you could end up using it and maybe the total cost to you would be, $10 because all you were doing was analyzing some, text documents, or say, it's not giving me that much value. But yeah, this was the best way we could come up with to make it fair and affordable and let people use it as much or as little as they want.
If you do something and you don't like what it returns and you don't is there an option to not add it to the file and therefore not be charged? Or is it like anything that it generates something, you'll be charged for whatever you
So
generate.
two questions. By default, when you run an AI action, you are adding it to a custom field, not to a permanent field that's, one of the regular metadata fields. And you should only be selecting, write it to one of these other fields if you're really happy with what the AI action is doing. Um, so, so yes, if you run a particular prompt and you're like, this is terrible. I made a bad prompt, or this is beyond the capability of the AI, you can just delete that field and all that data is gone. You will have to pay for it. They don't give you a refund of your 1/3 of a cent if you're not happy with what it returns. And there was something earlier. What did Richard? Can you use CAI to find similars? We'll be approaching that from in a different way. Theoretically you could, but I think that's going to be a lot easier for us to implement with, first with a more sophisticated metadata matching, and then second with image fingerprinting that would allow you to find similars. That is on the roadmap. I can't tell you exactly when. And as I will repeat that, if you want to be kept informed, or you want to sign up for this, you want to go to www.mediagraph.io/CAI. Yeah, Michael was asking about data privacy. Yeah, so in terms of data privacy, the terms of service on Amazon are very explicit that none of this is used for training, and none of this data is being kept outside the system. So essentially, we send an anonymized set of data out to them. They analyze it and send the analysis back. And the terms of service on Amazon are very clear that it's not trainable and you're not giving them any rights to that data. And we're a little bit over. Will the recording be shared? Yes, it will be shared. We'll email everybody who signed up. Yeah, even if you were here for the whole time, you might have missed some because I was talking pretty fast and showing a lot of stuff quickly. But we're really excited about it. It is a thing that, I'm waking up every other day with some cool idea that I can try out with it, and it really does. It really changes the way that we can make content discoverable in the system, and we think the sky's the limit as to where you can take this. Anybody else's question that we missed? That do we test all four? No. I think I start testing with the cheapest one just because that's the way I am. And if Ali asked, and if then I'll usually test with the more expensive ones. All right. Well, thank you everybody for taking a look. Judy asking about, do we have a good statement to share with leadership? Yeah, so we're putting material together. That's actually one of the reasons we're delaying for 2 weeks, is that we're getting all the documentation locked down, including the ability to give you something that you can show leadership and let them understand what it is, what it costs, and what the benefits could be. All right. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you guys coming and um, taking a look. And we're really excited to see what everybody's going to do with this. Thanks so much.